We know that they were engaged in efforts that were connected to the People's Liberation Army inside of that laboratory. So military activity being performed alongside what they claim was just good old civilian research. They refused to tell us what it was. They refused to describe the nature of either of those. They refused to allow access to the World Health Organization when it tried to get in there.
Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Fox and Friends there discussing reports that U.S. intelligence knew China's Wuhan lab was a bioweapons facility. President Biden this week asked the intelligence community to redouble efforts to collect and analyze information on the origins of the coronavirus pandemic. Meantime, China has announced it will not support or take part in a World Health Organization probe of those origins. Joining me now is Congressman Jim Banks, chairman of the Republican Study Committee, a member of the House Armed Services and Veteran Affairs Committees. He also serves in the U.S. Navy Reserves. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us today. We look back just a year, Congressman, and the idea that this came from a lab was considered a conspiracy theorist. You were talking about it, Senator Cotton, the president were talking about it. What's changed? How this sudden U-turn?
Nothing's changed. That's the incredible part of all this. The evidence a year ago compared to today is not any different. The only thing that's changed is that Donald Trump is no longer in office, in the White House. And that's the bottom line here. The fact that Donald Trump is gone and the pressure that this administration has felt in the last couple of weeks to dig into the origins of COVID-19 so that we can make sure that something like this never happens again and hold those responsible, in this case, the Chinese Communist Party. And now he's succumbing to that pressure and has engaged in the subject a little bit. But the only thing that's changed is Donald Trump is gone. And this no longer fits the narrative that the Democrats have used for the better part of over a year to blame Donald Trump instead of those who are ultimately responsible, who we need to hold accountable.
Yeah. Also last year, President Biden, then candidate Biden, said in a debate, he said that if he were president, he would call up President Xi, he would tell him our team is coming over to China, we're going to get to the bottom of it, and he'd make them do that. Well, what do you think we've seen from the administration? I mean, how forceful has he been? Are they going to get to the bottom of this?
Well, this is a situation that's exactly what Joe Biden told us it would be as a candidate when he ran for president. If you recall, Joe Biden dismissed China as a threat. Also remember that Nancy Pelosi refused to join in with Kevin McCarthy's China task force, which I was a part of on Capitol Hill. It was supposed to be bipartisan, but the Democrats, they refused to participate. I mean, this is a situation that we're seeing play out that we knew, we talked about during the campaign, that Joe Biden told us would be the case. Joe Biden and the Democrats will continue to play footsie with the Chinese Communist Party and with Xi and the other leadership in China, because the donors and those who put the Democrats in power to begin with, they require the Democrats to play footsie with China, because the big tech companies and the multinational corporations in this country who donated to Democrats and made Joe Biden president of the United States today, they rely on the profits that they receive from with their deals in China. So we're not going to see anything come of this 90-day plan. Really, it's too little, too late. And based on, by the way, on the track record of the Biden administration with the other ongoing crisis at the border that's going on today, which we've seen nothing come out of Vice President Harris being appointed to go down to the border, and she hasn't even been to the border. What are they going to do, put Vice President Harris in charge of this probe as well? I mean, based on the track record of that and everything else that's come out of this administration so far, we shouldn't hold our breath that they'll do anything about holding those accountable for the origins of COVID-19 either.
Okay, but if we did discover, I mean, if there was evidence that showed this virus came from the lab, whether it was intentional or not, whether the Chinese Communist Party then covered it up, resulting in the deaths of 600,000 Americans, 3.5 million people around the world, what action should be taken? How can we hold China accountable?
Well, at the very least, we should be sending a bill to China for the sheer cost of trillions of dollars that this country has incurred due to this pandemic. But on top of that, I mean, we have to do the very basic things that on Capitol Hill we've been talking about doing for a long time, and that's disentangling our economy with the economy of our biggest threat. The greatest existential threat that we face in America today is China. And yet we still have Wall Street and other entities in America that are investing in China's military and the greatest threat that we face. So these are common sense measures that we should be taking. And this administration, the Biden administration and Speaker Pelosi, they have no interest in holding China accountable for any of their negligence due to this or anything else that China has done to disrupt our American economy. It's because, once again, their donor base, those who put Democrats in power, are so close and entangled with China's interest and trade deals that allow for our jobs and our intellectual property to be stolen by China. The Democrats are never going to do anything about it.
Congressman, I have to get your views, your opinions on Memorial Day. I know that you served in the Army, in the Navy Reserves, rather. You've done a tour in Afghanistan. What does this day mean to you?
Well, Memorial Day has always been a somber occasion, especially having served in Afghanistan with some who didn't come home. I think of Sergeant Major Wardell Turner, for example, someone who I served with who was killed in Afghanistan, who didn't get to come home like I was lucky to be able to do myself. So this has always been a somber occasion. But for me, this is even more somber this year because when the party in power in this country, the Democrat Party, has advanced the critical race theory and the woke ideology that were coming from the left that teaches our children that America is evil and rooted in racism. It makes occasions like Memorial Day when we should be revering and respecting those whose ultimate sacrifice made this country the greatest country in the history of the world. Instead, we're teaching our kids something that's completely contrary to that. So we lose a little bit of our patriotism, or maybe a lot of our patriotism, when we teach our kids that America is rooted in evil. And on this Memorial Day, I especially think about that, and that those who pay the ultimate sacrifice deserve so much better.
Yeah, Congressman, important thoughts. Thank you for all of us to think about this weekend. Thank you also, sir, for your service, and have a wonderful weekend with your family. Take care.
Thank you.